Hey everyone, how's everyone doing today? I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. And this is the last video on mixing a big band. And this video is basically, I'm just going to walk you through on how I would go about preparing this for mastering. And there's a few things I would do. So let's start right now with one thing I always check. I check for the spread, meaning, do I have a nice spread? Is the full spectrum of my mix spread? So let's listen. Sometimes the horns, when you do this, when you route them to a mix bus like this, sometimes the panning gets a little wonky. So what I did is I panned my bus, and sometimes I've seen engineers pan their drum mix bus too. So let's experiment and see what works. So I'll go ahead and I'll mute the vocals, and let's listen to the track. All right, so for me, I can hear. Now, here's another thing I did. Trumpets were getting in the way of the vocals, so I did 1, 2, 4, and 3. So, I did 3 to the left and 1 to the right. All right, so I got a good spread there. So that works. And then let's do the drums. Let's pan them just not all the way left and right, but let's just do this. See what happens to our mix. I like it better this way. Some engineers do that. They'll pan their drums this way, or like this, or but it works for me that way. Okay, let's go to one thing that a lot of people have asked about, and they're like, well, Joe, the horns tend to get in the way of the vocalist while she's singing, and I agree. And there's a way that we can combat that, or there's a way we can address that, and it's called parallel compression, or I'm sorry, sidechain compression. Forgive me. So what I did is I created a bus, and I put in a compression plug-in. It's a multi-band compression plug-in, and I used the sidechain feature. So here's the thing: when the Vox signal is coming through this, it ducks the horns, and I'll show you what I mean. So let's go to where she's singing. Give me a second here. All right. Okay, fantastic. So.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. And since we've no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. It doesn't show so low. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. When we finally kiss goodnight.
All right, so what this does is once the vocal is singing, this area right here, this is where the vocal mainly sits. I'll put it more to 200. Here we go. 200 to about 4K. What it does is anything that, when the horns are playing in that area, it ducks it down by like a dB.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. When we finally kiss goodnight.
Okay, do you see that? Now I'm going to bypass it. And look how the horns stick out a little more.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. When we finally kiss goodnight. I will hate going out in the storm. But if
See how they duck out of the way just a little bit? Not a lot, but they do duck out of the way. That's a that's a trick that you could use just to make your vocals stand out a little more. Um, there was also someone who was telling me about the lead trumpet. They're like, "Oh, the lead trumpet's too prominent in the mix," and that's all for me. That's all personal taste. But in this instance, I know a lot of trumpet players that like to write on top of the band, meaning they like to have their sound on top of the band. And in this instance, the leader's a trumpet player, and I think he's playing first trumpet on this. And so that was my point, to try to have him just right on top of the band. Let's hear the shout chorus.
You love me so. Let it snow, let it snow, let it
Let's listen to the solo saxophone. And what I did too is I did that same compression technique to duck the band out of the way, or the horns out of the way, when the saxophone is playing. So I did the same thing there too. And so let's go to our mix bus, and let's a lot of people like to do what they call pre-mastering, and they use this plugin. It's like a pre-mastering plugin, and it does does like a final EQ, and then it does multi-band compression, where if there's any any frequencies you gotta control, it kind of dips them. And then it has this thing called the maximizer, which maximizes the volume, so you can kind of hear what it sounds like when it's if it was to be mastered, meaning at at the volume where mastering is preferred. So let's it's gonna get loud, so I'm gonna go ahead and introduce these plugins one by one. So here is the equalizer.
The fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbye. But as long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
All right, did you notice that? And I apologize if it got loud. Did you notice how like the band just came up, everything came up? So let's drop the band just a dB.
The fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbye. But as long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
All right, cool. And here's another thing. Here's kind of like my little glue I like to put on my entire mix. What I do is I put everybody in a space, meaning everybody all in the same room, and I use the Seventh Heaven plugin. You don't have to use it. You don't have to use this plugin, but what I like to do is I like to just gingerly apply a little bit of reverb to everybody, and just let's see what happens here. let's do it without.
The fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbye. But as long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
All right, so let's talk about these plugins real quick. You know what this did is, like I said, I liked it. 4 dB. Again, it's not much. You go to this band 3 here. Again, it's 4 dB at the most. Again, which is not much. 4 dB. Let's go back to 4 like that. See, it just barely kisses those compressors, just barely. And that's what you want. You don't want to do anything crazy. This maximizer, what it does, it increases the volume of the track. Here's a hint. If you're going to be doing like YouTube or something, I like to go safer. I like to go 1 dB ceiling. Again, that is plenty of room for the mastering engineer to do what he has to do. And here's another plugin. I like to use this. It's just a spatial processor. You don't have to use this, but to me, it just widens things up a little bit, which is pretty cool. Let me go ahead and put this before the mastering compressor here, or the mastering plugin here. Okay.
The fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbye. But as long as you love me so, let it snow.
Now I know what you're asking. Hey Joseph, what about a limiter? Now you can put a limiter. That's but I know a lot of mastering engineers that will not like you if you put limiters on your mix. That's their job. But if you want to hear what it sounds like when it's mastered,
The fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbye. But as long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
so I let the mastering engineer take care of that. I don't really mess with that.
The fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbye. But as long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
Some of you are asking, what's this do? So this is what they call a meter, and what it does is it helps me figure out where the sweet spot is for mastering, and I put it to K14. And if I'm like around this 0 right here, If my mix is hitting there, that means I've got plenty of headroom for my mastering engineer. Now, me, I like to give more than enough, and mastering engineers really appreciate that, so I just do that. All right, so let's talk about some of the final phases in mixing here, and that's what I call the sweetening. Basically, it's automation. And remember how this is why we do things globally. This is why we do things, as that's why we send things to Mixplus so we can save our computer power. Now, here's the thing: in the intro, I'll 2 dB at the most. Watch what happens. So here's the thing: if they were playing live, they would have to. The moment she came in, they would have to get softer. So why not do that here? Like, why not make sure that happens, electronically? I don't understand why a lot of mix engineers don't really spend a lot of time on this, because it's very important. Like, what would they be doing live if they were to play this live? What would you hear? You would hear dynamics, right? So let's go here, and like I said, 2 dB at the most. Okay. See how that was? Do you see how it was a slight change, but you could tell that it got softer, right? Okay, here's another part that I'm seeing right here in this area where the trumpets, I'm guessing they're in mutes. They're a little too prominent. So go to the trumpets here and here. Bring them down a dB or so. I always do 2 at the most.
Let it snow, when we finally kiss goodnight. I will hate going out in the storm, but if you really hold me tight, all the way home I'll be warm. The fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbye. But as long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it
snow. Okay. So right here, we have a shout chorus, right? Again, bring the band up a little bit. I mean, again, don't get crazy with it, but bring them up 2 dB. Let's hear it.
We're still goodbye, but as long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it
See how it got softer? Again, it's those little things that really make a good mix. And I mean, we can get really, we get really crazy with this, but we're not. It's uh, just if this was like a classical album, I'd be writing faders and stuff like that. So right here, the trumpets have a badu badu oh, and it's a nice little line, and I think the trumpets and trombones have that. So I'm just gonna by dB by dB. Watch what happens.
The fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbye. But as long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
All right. The horns can come, especially the trumpets and the trombones, where they have that ba, that upbeat. Let's control that a little bit. Let's bring that down a little more. Because they would have it in their parts. I mean, it wouldn't say, melt the walls. It would say, mezzo forte or something like that. So yeah, just pick your spots. Let's hear how it sounds. Okay, a little more for the trumpets. I would say even more. Okay, cool. Now, the last part of mixing, and this is why we do things, this is why we have groups, is fades. Now, this gentleman took it upon himself to do the fades for me. Thanks, but no thanks, because they're not all together. So I'm going to get rid of all the fades here. If I see fades, I think I see some fades on the horns. Again, see, I can just go to the horn group, go like this, and then get rid of all the fades. So, let me see. It says there's no fades on there. Okay, well, here's the thing. I just like to do everything globally. Go to all. And what I'm going to do is go here and just okay. So, and just there you go, drums. Let me get rid of that. Let me undo that real quick. Let me just do the horns. I'll do the horns and I'll do the rhythm section. Okay, so let's just do the horns first. Grab the tail into that. Like right here. Okay. Skip. See, tenor 2 is being a little... Okay. Sometimes you get this, folks. Okay. Let me delete the fades on this. Let me see what happened here. Okay, yeah. All right. Delete fades. Here. There we go. Okay, everybody else is faded. Okay, so let's do, again, rhythm section. Remember, I have them all grouped, so we can just do this. So, let's listen to it. nice and clean. And one thing I do on my master bus is I will um, I will bring everything down once I hear the fade. Okay. All right. So that pretty much concludes our mix tutorial on a big band here. I'll I like, again, you're gonna listen to it a couple times. Listen to it in the car. Listen to it on different mediums. Listen to it on your phone, and you might hear some things and make adjustments. But this should be a good starting point for everybody. And like I said, if I help somebody, hey, it was all worth it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it for you. And go out and make some great music.